Welcome to the 4Heroes podcast. We're so thankful for our first responders and our weekly gathering at the 4Heroes Huddle. Chaplain Frank Mercer has been teaching through the Bible. It's a source of hope, help, comfort, and consolation. Today's message is from Exodus 20. Frank shares a meaningful perspective on commandment number 4. We're all busy, but this commandment challenges our pace, our focus. Do we prioritize rest? Do we set aside time to connect with God? Whether you're a part of the public safety community or not, this is essential. We often wear busyness like a badge of honor. Busyness says, I matter. Sabbath says, God matters.
This is a day that He's made, so we'll rejoice and be glad. I'm glad that you guys are here. We are going to continue in Exodus chapter 20. We're going to read in a minute verse 8. Before I read you the verse, let me just give you a little bit of background. John Ortberg is one of my favorite preachers and writers. He was pastoring a church in California that moved at a pretty fast pace. It was growing quickly, and reached out to Dallas Willard, one of his spiritual mentors. He said, listen, I'm at the church. Things are good, but it moves so fast. Plus, we're in this season of life, this minivan driving, soccer leaguing, piano lessoning, school orientationing season of life. And I just want to know how to be spiritually healthy. It's a long pause. And Dallas Willard said, you must ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life. It was not what Ortberg expected to hear. He expected to hear, well, you got to read the Bible more. You got to pray more. What are you doing? You need to fast. Instead of adding, Dallas Willard was actually suggesting that he subtract. And he said there was a long pause. And finally he said to Dallas Willard, okay, I've written that down. That's a good one. What else you got? And there was another long pause, and Dallas Willard said, that's it. You must ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life. Why, Because Dallas Willard said, hurry is the enemy of your soul. Think about that. Hurry is the enemy of your soul. Hurry is a sociopathic predator that seeks your ruin. It's not that you have a disoriented schedule, it's that you have a disoriented heart. Corrie ten Boom famously said, if the devil can't make you bad, he'll make you busy. It's that hurry, And that's what's at the heart of commandment number 4, which is where we are, Exodus chapter 20, verse 8. Which says, remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. Sabbath is a word that we don't use a lot, and when we do use it, we tend to misuse it. We think of Sabbath as Sunday, and I observed the Sabbath by going to church. But Sabbath historically was not Sunday, it was Saturday. In fact, it started at sundown Friday and went to sundown Saturday. And it was not about doing more, it was about doing less. The word Sabbath in Hebrew is Shabbat. It means to stop. The rabbis of Jesus' day were so concerned with the people obeying this command that they organized a system where there were 39 types of work that were prohibited on the Sabbath. And those kinds of work included things like sowing, plowing, harvesting, kneading, baking, shearing, the kinds of things that you did in the day-to-day in first century Israel. And then they came up with 613 more laws to protect the Sabbath. Now, these laws are called fence laws because it's an effort to keep you in the fence. So these are very restrictive. And these didn't come from the Bible. They came from the rabbis. And I'll give you a few examples. You couldn't spit on the Sabbath because it would disturb the dirt and you would be guilty of plowing. You could not swat a fly on the Sabbath because you would be guilty of hunting. A woman could not look at her reflection on the Sabbath because she might see a gray hair and be tempted to pluck it out, and that would be work. If your house was on fire on the Sabbath, you couldn't carry any additional clothing out of the house, but you could wear it. You could layer it, because if you carried it, that was work. But if you layered it, that was just fashion, I guess. Yeah. You see how legalistic it could get. So my point in saying all that is that the Sabbath was a gift. God gave us a gift. It's an expression of love from our Father who cares for us and knows what we need, and we need rest. And the rabbis made it a burden. We just turned it into one more thing to do. Commandment number 4 is the only one of the 10 that is not repeated in the New Testament. Did you know that? Maybe that's why some of us tend to behave as though it no longer applies. Because if you think about the commandments, don't bear false witness, don't say things that aren't true, don't lie. Well, nobody brags about how many lies they told last week. I mean, you wouldn't believe the whopper I told last week. Nobody that I know of, even people who are far from God, really brag about how many people they slept with last week. Nobody brags about how many people they murdered last weekend. Bragging about breaking the commandments is not a thing that we typically do, but people do brag about breaking commandment number 4. How are you doing? Oh man, I'm busy. I am busy. It's a way of saying I'm valuable. I matter. Things wouldn't get done without me, People will brag about how they went away and they came back and their email box was just full, swamped. How late they worked the night before, how early they came in today, how many days in a row they've been working. And it's a way of saying I matter, I'm important, I'm in demand. We wear that busyness like it's a badge of honor. And maybe that's one reason why statistically Americans work more hours on average than any other country in the world. We act like we're the Energizer Bunny. You remember him? Keeps going and going and going. I shared this Bible study last week with a different group, and they were all younger than you guys, and nobody knew who the Energizer Bunny was. I had to explain it, which really kind of slowed down the whole thing. You and I we're not machines. We have souls. We think of ourselves as human beings, but we act like we're not beings, we're doings. You're a human being, not a human doing. And when you don't Sabbath, you are not yielding to the rhythm that God has created you to live within. And so the result is burnout and anxiety and high blood pressure and a weakened immune system and brain fog. These are just all notes from my last doctor's visit. Yeah. And a disconnect from others and a disconnect from God. Years ago, I was driving to a men's retreat I was going to speak at. I was in a hurry. I packed my bag at the last minute. I got in my car. I started it up. I had to drive about 3 hours into the mountains for this retreat. And I got in my car and I looked at the gas tank and I had not put gas in my tank. And I'm flustered and mad at myself. And I'm in a hurry. And hurry is the enemy of my soul, but I'm behaving as though it's not. And I thought, well, I need to stop and get gas, but I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait until I get to the interstate, and then I'll just jump on the interstate after I get gas. And I drove past gas stations, and then I ran out of gas. And I'm on the side of the road when this minivan pulls up, and it's somebody from our church. It's one of the moms from our church, and she's got a whole bunch of kids in the minivan with her. And she says, "Preacher, are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm all right." She said, "Aren't you supposed to be in the mountains?" "My husband's up in the mountains, the retreat this weekend." I said, yeah, I'm on my way." She said, "Are you walking?" said, no, I ran out of gas a little bit back, and I got to go down to the gas station and buy a gas can and get gas and take it back, and then I got to stop at the gas station again to fill up my tank. It's just a whole thing. She said, would you like a ride? And I said, I would very much like a ride. So I climb up in the car with her, and we start to pull ahead to the gas station. When she says, isn't the theme for this weekend? And I said, yes. The theme for the weekend is filling your tank. And it's all about silence and solitude and Sabbath. And I had not filled my tank. I'm the world's worst offender of commandment number 4. I sometimes just feel guilty when I stop because I feel like I need to be in motion. I feel like I need to be doing things. I need to be crossing things off my list. And the truth is, I might have been able to stay out of the hospital if I'd been obeying commandment number 4. Rest refuels you. You know, you want to fill the tank, you've got to stop. You've got a Sabbath. We need margin. You hear people say that, you know, you need margin. You need margin in your life. And I think about a piece of paper that has a margin and that I don't write to the edge, except that often I do write to the edge, to the very edge. I heard a really great explanation of what margin is a couple weeks ago. It is the space between our load and our limit. Our load being what we choose to carry, our limit being what we're meant to carry. And I need space between those things. And too often I've gone over my limit just trying to pile up and pile up and pile up everything that I could possibly carry. And I wasn't made for that, and neither were you. It's made worse by the fact that we're living in a culture that is built around achievement, accomplishment, accumulation, and this push to do more. So even though it's not repeated in the New Testament as a command like the other 9 are, at the very least, this principle of Sabbath remains. More than a day, it's a way of being, a way of living that comes from abiding in Jesus. It's choosing quiet over noise, stillness over hurry, clarity over chaos. It's a life of trust in God over the opposite, which is not doubt. The opposite of trust is actually anxiety. I'm carrying more than my limit. Into our world comes Jesus. Listen carefully to what he says in Matthew 11, verses 28 through 30. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened. Man, I've been on the weary and burdened train for a long time. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you, do you know what the next word is? Rest. And I will give you rest. And then remember, he's speaking into an agricultural culture. He says, take my yoke upon you and learn from me. You know what a yoke is? It was what you put around an ox's neck to have him plow the ground. What Jesus is saying is you're going to bear a yoke, and the yoke you're choosing to bear is exceptionally heavy. You're choosing to take all you can carry, your load that way exceeds your limit. And I'm calling you, I'm inviting you, come to me if you're weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. You're going to carry a yoke one way or the other. You can choose to carry your yoke, which is really heavy, or you can choose to carry my yoke, which is easy. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. When you put two oxen on one yoke, a few things happen. They stay together. They walk in step with each other, and it lightens the load. Jesus is inviting you to stay in step with Him, to share the load. What you're carrying is too much. Let me ease your burden. Let me ease your burden. Shake that one yoke off and try mine, because you weren't meant to carry that burden alone. It's too much. It's too much. So He shares the load, and we put that yoke on, and He walks with us, and we stay in step with Him, and we move in the same direction as He does. But if you kept reading, that would be the end of Matthew 11. And you know what comes after Matthew 11? Matthew 12. Yeah. I know. I know. Well, you know, in the original, there's no chapter and verse, so it's just one continuous thought. And as Jesus finishes saying those words, the first 14 verses of Matthew 12 are two incidents that have to do with Sabbath. And then right smack dab in the middle of that, Jesus says something remarkable. He declares that He is Lord of the Sabbath. And so what you learn from that is that Sabbath is not just a principle that we ought to be keeping. The Sabbath is a person. Jesus is the fulfillment of commandment number 4. Lord of the Sabbath. Lord of the Sabbath. Ortberg and Dallas Willard aren't wrong when they say you've got to ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life. You've got to radically reorder the pace of your life. This is not what a pastor's telling me. This is what my doctor's telling me. Radically reorder the pace of your life, which the Bible teaches me means to take up the yoke of Jesus. Jesus, Lord of the Sabbath. He is our Sabbath rest. And abiding in Him is the secret to keeping the Sabbath every day. He's inviting you, come to me. He's inviting you right now. Come to me. That's all I got to say about that. Let me pray for you, okay?
Thank you for listening to the 4Heroes podcast. All of us have things that challenge our ability to observe the Sabbath and connect with God. But like Frank said, Sabbath is more than a principle. It's a person. It's Jesus. If you or anyone you know wants to know more about our relationship with Jesus or help support our ministry to first responders, please visit our website, 4ourheroes.org. That's the number 4, 4ourheroes.org. We would love to hear from you.